this morning's health club is focusing on burns. So we're going to be asking Dr. Pokuwari and Puma more questions about that topic. Okay, Doc, so when would you say that one has actually suffered from a burn?
One sustains a burn when one comes into contact with other heat sources, electrical sources, radiation sources, or chemicals, and these inflict a damage on your skin or deeper parts of the body sometimes, and that is called a burn.
Okay, and within your unit and within this department of the hospital, what is it that you're seeing most in regards to the causes of these burns?
Well, the causes of these burns, there's some sort of demographic factors that we have seen. In children, the commonest cause of burns in children is from hot liquids. So they come into contact with hot water, hot soup, etc. And in fact, during the recent, Harmattan, period, we were seeing a lot of children coming in with burns because they're trying to prepare hot water to go and bath, etc. And it's usually due to poor parental supervision. Now, when it comes to the adult group, there's a very interesting trend that we are noticing. Over the last, I'll say, 10 years, we've seen a rapid rise in the incidence of burns from gas and petroleum explosions. A lot of people are being encouraged to use gas cylinders, etc. And although we've been promoting that, it hasn't gone with the right amount of safety information, etc. And so we've seen people coming in with burns from gas explosion. And now we're doing about 35% of our overall admissions are from burns from those causes, and they make up a bigger chunk of the burn cases. Of course, we also see electrical burns, some of these power outages, etc. Some people come out with electrical burns, and occasionally we see people coming with burns from other exposure to chemicals, usually from assault. Yes.
All right, and in regards to these burns at all, would you say that a certain amount of them are preventable?
Actually, more than 80% of burns are preventable. Burns are highly preventable injuries, and that's how come elsewhere in the world they'll be able to reduce the number of burns to a very bare minimum, because when you put in proper preventive strategies, you'll be able to cut down the number of burns.
Okay, let's talk about the degrees of burns, because some will be less painful, some will be in regards to the actual amount of burns that has happened to the person. So explain to us the degrees of burns and what we're seeing most within these units as well.
Actually, within this unit, there's a bias towards the very severe burns, because when somebody has got a very mild burn, they're not likely to be referred to this unit. They'll be seen at any of the peripheral hospitals. So what we see are the very major burns. So we say someone has got a major burn when they more than for a child, when more than 10% of their body surface area, where you take 1% to be the size of your palm, so 10 times of that. If that's burn, that's about 10% of your body. So anything more than that in a child is a severe burn, and for an adult, anything more than 15% is a severe burn. Then we also see burns when people are trapped in a building and they inhale a lot of chemicals. They have damage to their breathing apparatus, and that can endanger their lives. So we need to admit them and monitor them closely. There are also, when people have suffered electrical burns, it's because depending on the path of the current, it can cause damage internally as well as externally. So those people also need to be monitored as well to prevent certain complications. And then where burns are of the hands, the feet, or the face, very delicate areas which when not treated properly would affect the people's ability to function or would disfigure them severely. Those are classified as major burns. But you asked about degree. Now the degree of burns, usually it's people talk about first degree, second degree, third degree, etc. Now the first degree burn, classic first degree burn, is not something that will bring anybody to hospital, because a first degree burn usually is a typical example is sunburn. So when the white people or Caucasians go into the sun and they lie in the sun, the skin becomes very red and slightly painful. It doesn't form any blisters, and usually if you just apply some soothing cream to it, within 5 to 7 days it heals. So that's a first degree burn. Now a second degree burn is a kind of burn which starts producing blisters. Okay, so second degree burn is it's quite painful because your nerve endings are still intact, and you see a lot of blisters forming and that sort of swelling, that sort of thing. But the deeper part of the superficial part of the skin is bent, but the deeper part of the skin is still alive. So for those second degree burns, if they are treated properly and you prevent infection, they usually heal within 2 to 3 weeks. Then we have the third degree burn where the full thickness of the skin is bent. Now paradoxically, the third degree burn is actually less painful, because all the nerve endings are bent, so the patient feels is not screaming in pain, and is lying down quietly. So you think that they are better, but actually they are worse off, and so that's like the calm before the storm, So that's when the third that's third degree burn, when the full thickness of the skin is bent. And then we have something called the fourth degree burn, where it's bent deeper than the skin, it's gone into muscle, it's gone into bone sometimes. A typical example is when people who have got seizures or epilepsy, they fall into fire because everybody's afraid that if they touch them, they are going to, also, get that spirit, so they are left alone and so they burn and they literally get cooked.
Okay, Doc, is there any point in time where there's a patient that may have been burnt so severely that you would feel that they could not be?
Yes, unfortunately, as in anything, there are some degrees of burns that are so severe that survival chances are very, very slim. And so let's say especially if you take a young child who is very young, or people who are very elderly, or you take people who have got some other medical condition like diabetes, like sickle cell, like kidney failure, etc. Or you take a pregnant woman, for instance, they have so many issues going on. So when they do get severely burnt, then it really reduces the chances of survival are very slim. So there's a certain concept in burn care where we have this of non-survivable burn. Although where there are a lot of resources, they still sort of keep pushing, to try and do everything as possible. We don't give up on anybody per se, but then we also have to take a realistic look at the chances, of somebody surviving a burn. Because in Ghana, for instance, if you have any burn more than 60-70%, that is quite challenging. A few people have been able to survive, but then you find that majority of the patients with such percentage of burns may not survive.
Let's talk about scar tissue, because obviously with burns, one thing that people do fear the most is the aftermath, what they will look like afterwards with the scar tissue. Now, in regards to scars, I've heard that pouring fresh milk or carbonated milk on a wound or burn while it's healing can actually prevent scars. How true is this, Doc?
Well, I haven't seen any study on that sort of thing, and burn wounds and scars are one of the areas where people say all sorts of things, but most of these have not been validated. The fact is that when a burn wound is fresh, when you add all this milk and all this other stuff, what you're doing is you're encouraging bacteria to grow within the wound, and that's rather contaminates the wound. If you left milk there, for example, or if you put milk, you just left milk on your table, for example, when you come back, it smells bad or it tastes bad because it's got this spot. Bacteria has invaded it. Same way, if you put it on your skin, you get bacteria invading it, and they will rather cause a wound infection. So actually, you will not be doing yourself any good if you apply some of those things. So in the fresh burn, all you need to do is just during the first aid to give is just pour clean water, fresh water on the burn, cool it down. Okay, or if it's a chemical, just wash off the chemical as much as possible, and then go to us to cover it with a clean, dry cloth or towel. Sheets, whatever clean thing you can get, and then go to us and get appropriate first aid. Now, after the burn has healed, then we now encourage people to apply moisturizing creams, because as your skin is healing, sometimes there's some changes that occur within the skin, and applying a moisturizing cream and giving it a good massage helps you to get flatter scars, or scars that don't become swollen or become less disfiguring. Yeah. What happens is that when your skin is quite a bit elastic, now when you get a burn and it heals, it becomes less elastic, a bit more rigid, tighter, exactly. So this massaging process helps to restore some of that elasticity to the skin. So at that stage, we encourage people to massage. So a local product like shea butter in Kuto is very, very good for some of these scars. So just doing that simple massage. And there are other things that we also apply when needed.
Doc, last time we spoke to you, we were talking about reconstructive surgery, and we touched also on slightly on cosmetic surgery. Now, obviously, being in the burn unit, you would see that some people may opt for this after they've gone through, the necessary treatment. How common is this in Ghana at the moment? Are people actually opting for reconstructive or cosmetic surgery, and are you referring people that way as well?
Yes. I need to sort of define the terms a bit. All right. Reconstructive surgery is surgery that you take, on any part of the body to restore its form or its function after disease or injury. So if you're doing any surgery to, let's say, to a burn patient, he's been affected by a disease process or an injury. Okay, a burn is an injury. So then if I'm doing anything to correct it, that is not really termed cosmetic surgery. That is more a reconstructive procedure. Whereas if you talk of cosmetic surgery, you are undertaking surgery on a part of the body which is normal, but you're trying to improve how it looks or reverse the aging, the effects of aging. So that's usually maybe somebody who's had childbirth and says, look, I don't like the way my tummy looks, or it's making me look so, I want to do something about it. And that is cosmetic. And usually that is, something that's based on the choice of the individual. Whereas for reconstructive surgery, let's say a patient came with burn, and after he's healed, we find that maybe his fingers have become stiff, he can't move them, straighten and that sort of thing. We would actually offer the patient that option of having it, reconstructed so that they can function.
Okay. All right. And are you tending to refer people that way nowadays, normally after they've gone through burns?
Yes, usually it is part of the treatment process. Okay. So what we do is that we're trying to prevent deformities, but then if the deformities do occur, we intervene by doing some form of reconstructive surgery. And then what should also happen is that for burn patients, maybe at the time that they were treated, they may not have certain deformities, but as they grow, especially in the case of children, for instance, I told you that the skin is not a burn skin is not as elastic as a normal skin. So as the child is growing, the skin envelope has to also stretch to accommodate that growth. But then if the skin is burnt, it doesn't stretch as much. So sometimes you may have certain parts of the body being too tight, etc. For girls, for instance, when they reach puberty, if they've gotten burns on the chest, you find the breast does not bud. The breast just it gets plastered to the chest. So we have to grafting and another thing. So that is a reconstructive surgery process, which we offer as a matter of course to our patients.
How expensive is it, or how affordable is it, and what is actually offered on the NHIS?
I think many of my patients will be very pleased that you've asked this question, because the cost element is really, really one of the key things in caring for burn patients. Caring for burn patients is really, really expensive, because if apart from when they come in acutely, we need a lot of expensive medication, so that they have to be nursed in an intensive care environment for all the monitoring. They need a lot of dressing changes. They may need surgery, sometimes emergency surgery, sometimes elective surgery, and there's so many things that go into all this process to get a burn patient to survive. Now, let me give you an idea of the numbers. If you have a patient who comes in with, let's say, 50% of his body burns, for instance, by the time he leaves hospital, he would have spent about 25,000 Ghana cedis at the minimum, in order for him to survive. Now, if you take the average Ghanaian family, how many people can be able to come up with such an amount? And unfortunately, the NHIS is only able to give us around about 1,000 Ghana cedis per patient. So then this financing gap or this financing deficit has to be made up somehow.
Just to round things up, I mean, we see fires happening almost anywhere and everywhere at the moment, including this hospital being a place as well. At this point in time, you have advised Ghanaians, to prevention is better than cure. But in regards to the general public and first aid when it comes to burns, what would be your advice on that?
Yes, with regards to the preventive aspect, there are certain incidents that occur in the home, because if you look at, let's say, the population of burn patients we have, majority of the burns occur at home. So prevention has to start at home. As they say, charity begins at home. So for the home, for instance, parents should make sure that the areas for cooking, let's say in the kitchen, and it should be demarcated away so that kids don't feel that is part of their play area. So they're playing when the fire is on and things, and then they end up falling into soup or colliding with somebody. All those things are. And then when you go to the bathroom, for instance, most of the time we try to carry, when we prepare hot water, we try to carry it from where we prepared it, and ration it, to the bathroom. But it's better for you to bring cold water to where you prepare the hot water and then dilute it there, so that when you are transporting the water, it is water that is already ready for bathing. So if it spills, it doesn't cause any harm. And then things like electrical wiring, for instance. Sometimes I know in this area of light on, light off, and things, sometimes the light goes off, so you've forgotten that you've plugged in something. But many times people plug in things like mobile phone chargers, etc., or wires, and come to the house and the wires are running all over the place. Kids are also crawling all over the place. They take a wire, they bite it, and then they get all these electrical injuries. And then most of our houses also have old wiring. You're supposed to change your wiring every 20-25 years or so. We don't do that. So they catch fire and cause all sorts of problems. So all these are things that we can do on the preventive side. Now, one key thing that is also causing burns is this use of gas cylinders. Gas cylinders have got an expiry date. Many of us don't check these things, and then there's also a way to use it. It shouldn't even, when you are filling, it shouldn't be filled to the brim. Some people, because it's under pressure. When you take any amount of gas, when it comes out, it expands about 250 times. So it's under very high pressure. And sometimes people tell the guys who are saying, "Hello, Shanama, try, But when you do that, then it's likely the pressure is likely to be too much that it escapes the valve. The valve is not able to control it. And the other thing is even the way you handle the gas cylinder. People, rolling it all over and things like that, causing damage to the casing. And then when you position the cylinder, it's supposed to be in a position in a place where there's a lot of circulation. But most people, you find it inside the room. So when there's any leak, it concentrates, and any small fire or whatever or any little source of heat can ignite it, and then it's an explosion. And so we need to take some of these precautions. Changing the regulators, the tubes have to be changed regularly, And so we need to. And then even when you are lighting the gas, you light the match first before you turn it on. But some people turn it on first before they light the match. So sometimes in that process you may get distracted. You may take a few seconds, but you've got built up amount of gas, and then there's an explosion. So and then sometimes even people try to service the cylinder themselves. I don't know, how that works, but they do that, and people take unnecessary risks with their lives, and they get injuries. And these gas explosions, when it happens, the injuries are very, very horrible. So on that side, I really like people to take some of these things seriously. And then when it comes to chemicals, etc., make sure that you store chemicals in a proper container away from children so that they don't get access to it. And then even where you store it, people can store petrol in their kitchens or in places where it's easy for other people to get access to. And there are particular containers for storing petrol. You need this metal container with strong clasps that don't allow anything to leak. See, if you keep fuel in a container and you can smell it, it means that container is, because it means petroleum vapor is still leaking out, and it can cause an ignition. So we need to sort of look at all these things. And then at the workplace, safety culture at the workplace. We need to have, everybody should know what to do. Sometimes we have fire extinguishers, but people don't know how to use them, or basic things. Switching off things that are not in use, switching off the ACs and other machinery when we finish using them. All those are things that we must learn as part of the work safety culture. Once in a while we should have fire drills, but we never do. And in schools, we catch them young and they are yours forever. In schools, we should be teaching things about fire safety, all these precautions, how to give first aid, what to do, but we are not doing it, so the kids grow up and they don't know what to do in such a situation. If somebody gets burnt, first thing to do is that just get ordinary water, and use it to cool the burn. Now, when somebody is in a close catches fire, the thing to do is not to run, because when you run, it means you are feeding more oxygen to the fire and it will burn you. And then don't also try to take off the clothes. People have gotten their faces burned because they're trying to take off a t-shirt or something that was burning. So the thing to do is just drop on the ground and roll. and that puts out the flame, and then you can sort of pour water to cool the burn. Sometimes if you have to cut the clothes, you can cut it later. But those are the first 8 things. So cool the burn. If it's a chemical burn, just wash it off to keep washing till the burning sensation stops. So just cool the burn with water, and then after that, apply a dry cloth or clean sheet to it, and then get to the hospital and get appropriate treatment.
Dr. Ampoma, I want to thank you so much for joining us once again on New Day. Congratulations to you and your unit, and hopefully we will continue seeing you doing your great works here at Kolebu. Thank you so much.